Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about a fascinating time in Greek history, the 1920s. Now, Greece in the 1920s wasn't exactly the picture of stability, peace, or prosperity, but it was a time of transformation, struggle, and fascinating cultural shifts. Let's dive in. First off, let's talk about the economic conditions. The 1920s in Greece were not exactly a golden age. The country was still reeling from the Greco-Turkish War that ended in 1922, and the scars of that conflict were visible everywhere. Poverty was widespread, the agricultural sector was totally disrupted, and on top of all that, Greece had to figure out how to integrate hundreds of thousands of refugees from Asia Minor. So, the country was struggling financially. Agriculture was still the backbone of the economy, think olive oil, tobacco, and wine, but they couldn't quite shake off the trade imbalance. While they were exporting agricultural goods, Greece had to import manufactured goods, which left them vulnerable. The industrial sector was super underdeveloped, unemployment was high, and inflation wasn't helping matters either. Foreign loans were their lifeline, but without the infrastructure to really modernize, Greece was falling behind the rest of Europe. Now, this leads us to innovation and technology. Spoiler alert, Greece wasn't exactly leading the charge in tech during the 20s. There were some innovations here and there, particularly in agriculture, like new techniques for producing olive oil and processing tobacco. In the cities, Athens, Thessaloniki, things like electricity, telecommunications, and transportation started to improve, which was a step in the right direction. But overall, technology wasn't advancing fast enough to keep up with other European countries. Research and development just weren't getting the funding they needed, and that was because the economy was in such rough shape. Politically, Greece was a hot mess. Imagine the chaos. Coups, revolutions, shifts in government left and right. Greece had just been through the trauma of war, and then in 1922, they temporarily got rid of the monarchy. Greece became a republic, but only for a couple of years. By 1924, there were enough supporters of the monarchy, especially military factions, that they managed to restore King George II in 1935. So, this wasn't a time of political peace. You had royalists, republicans, military guys all fighting for control, and it didn't help that the country was dealing with economic struggles, refugee crises, and war debts. Now, let's talk about Greece's military situation. After the devastation of the Greco-Turkish War, Greece's military was in rough shape. They were still trying to figure out how to rebuild their army and navy, and they were mostly focused on defense, especially along the border with Turkey and the Aegean Sea. But their military was stuck with old weaponry from World War I. It was a lot of rifles, artillery, and, let's be honest, not much air power. Greece tried to modernize, but with the state of their economy, it wasn't happening quickly. Their tactics were still very traditional, infantry-heavy, and focused on coastal defense. Greece didn't exactly have a reputation for military power in the 1920s. On the social front, things weren't much better. The country was a mix of rural and urban populations, both struggling with poverty and unemployment. Refugees from the Greco-Turkish War, the ones who came pouring in from Asia Minor, faced huge difficulties in integrating into Greek society. It created this tense atmosphere, and there was a lot of unrest. The rural population was still deeply tied to traditional farming life, while in the cities, industrialization was so slow that the working class was dealing with poor conditions. Urban workers faced low wages, bad working conditions, and a lack of opportunities. The frustration boiled over into labor strikes and protests, with people demanding better living conditions. It wasn't a peaceful time. And let's not even get started on healthcare and welfare. Healthcare in the 1920s in Greece was super basic. Rural areas had almost nothing. In the cities, there were some hospitals, but they were overcrowded and under-resourced. The quality of life for most people was really low. Life expectancy wasn't great, and there were major public health issues, especially in rural parts of the country. The lack of a proper welfare system meant that a lot of people were left to fend for themselves, especially when things got tough. Refugees in particular faced unimaginable hardships. Things like sanitation and public health care were in pretty rough shape, and the majority of the population lived in dire conditions. The 1920s were also a time of significant demographic change. A huge part of Greece's population was made up of ethnic Greeks who had been uprooted from Asia Minor after the war. These refugees flooded into Greece, particularly into cities like Thessaloniki and the Peloponnese. It wasn't easy for them. They often faced discrimination and had a hard time fitting in. Along with these Greek refugees, there were also minorities like Albanians, Bulgarians, and Jews, particularly in urban areas. Ethnic tensions were high, and political instability didn't help. This was a country with deep-rooted historical wounds, especially when it came to its relationship with Turkey. Among the key figures of influence in Greece during this time were military leaders like General Nikolaos Plastiras, who played a huge role in the political chaos, and of course, King George II, who came back to power in the mid-30s. There was also Ioannis Metaxas, who started to make waves in the 20s and would later go on to establish an authoritarian regime in the 1930s. Politicians like Eleftherios Venizelos, who had been a big deal earlier in the century, lost some of his power during this time, especially after the military defeats and internal divisions that rocked Greece. But writers and intellectuals still had a huge cultural influence, helping to shape Greece's national identity during this time of crisis. As you can imagine, this instability created fertile ground for crime, underground movements, and secret societies. As the economy struggled and the government was unstable, left-wing groups started organizing. Anarchists and socialists pushed for social reform and workers' rights, clashing with the more conservative right-wing groups and military leaders who held power. The country was full of conspiracies and violent confrontations, with underground movements hoping to take control of Greece's future. And of course, the police and military weren't exactly taking it easy. They cracked down hard on these movements. But amidst all the chaos, the culture of Greece was also evolving. Despite all the hardship, the 1920s were a time of cultural and intellectual ferment. Writers like Giorgos Seferis and Konstantin P. Kavafi became iconic, using poetry to explore themes like national identity, loss, and what it means to be Greek. The arts were thriving, especially in urban centers, where modernism began to take root. Greek theater, both classical and modern, was super popular, and music, particularly traditional folk music, remained an integral part of life. Greek cinema was just starting to emerge, and while it wasn't exactly Hollywood level yet, it began to capture the imagination of the people. Religion was, as always, a huge part of life in Greece. The Greek Orthodox Church had a massive influence on everyday life, especially in rural areas. It wasn't just about religion, it was also about community, tradition, and culture. But the 1920s were also a time when mysticism and alternative spiritual beliefs began to pop up. Small sects exploring new ideas mixed with the old Christian traditions. Tensions existed between the Orthodox Church and smaller, non-Orthodox groups, especially in cities where the population was more diverse. Of course, no story about Greece in the 1920s would be complete without mentioning Greek folklore and myths. Greece's rich mythology continued to captivate people's imaginations. Stories of ancient gods, heroes, and creatures like the Minotaur and the Cyclops. These myths, combined with the events of the modern era, created a fascinating mix of ancient legends and recent historical experiences. Folk traditions, like storytelling and dancing, were still a major part of Greek life, especially during religious and national celebrations. And finally, the most defining event of the 1920s in Greece, the aftermath of the Greco-Turkish War. That war, followed by the population exchanges between Greece and Turkey, changed the demographic makeup of the country forever. It also led to the destruction of Smyrna in 1922 and the migration of hundreds of thousands of Greek refugees. This event, more than anything, shaped the Greece of the 1920s, leaving deep scars on the country's psyche and setting the stage for political upheaval in the following decades. So, there you have it, the 1920s in Greece, a time of economic hardship, political instability, cultural transformation, and a country desperately trying to rebuild and redefine itself. It's a story of resilience in the face of chaos, and a reminder that even the most turbulent times can give birth to profound cultural and historical shifts. Thanks for tuning in to The World as We Know It and joining me in another chapter of world history. As always, there are more detailed notes in the description, and we welcome any requests or recommendations in the comments section. If you found this video helpful, entertaining, or educational, please consider liking this video and subscribing to support our channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.